Hey, this is Stephanie Stuckey with Stuckies, and you're listening to From the Heart with Ed Hart.
Thank you, Stephanie. My guest today, I'm excited. I remember growing up as a child. I've had the good fortune of traveling all over the country with my parents. When I was 13 years old in the 70s, we took a month-long road trip and we went all over the country. And I especially remember seeing the Stuckey's billboards and the signs and stopping at the different markets along the way. And most of you listening and watching today probably have either had that experience as well or know someone who has. Stephanie grew up in and still lives in Georgia outside of Atlanta. She served on a lot of things I learned about you, Stephanie, as I was doing some research and going through your bio. 14 years on the Georgia House of Representatives. So
that was a good run.
Yeah, 14 years. Well, I'd love to hear more about that. You're an attorney. You got an undergraduate degree. She got an undergrad in French from University of Georgia. And then a few years later, got her law degree also from the University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs.
I'm a double dog.
one of the Southeastern Conference universities I can tolerate. So
thank you.
I'm a Pac-12 guy, so we have our little rivalry with the SEC. Stephanie grew up and spent a lot of her early life in Washington, D.C. She's the third generation leader now of the Stuckey's Corporation, and we'll get into that a little bit as well. Those of you who listen and watch From the Heart know that we are all about family business. Not all of our guests are family owned, but most of them are. In fact, our title sponsor now for From the Heart podcast is a company called Orange Kiwi, and they're a family business consulting firm all over the world, headquartered here in Southern California. And a lot of work with family-owned companies there as well. Born on Christmas Day. I won't say the year, not for me to share, but I will definitely say that she's a Christmas Day baby. So what's that like?
Yeah, me and the baby Jesus share birthday.
There you go, you baby Jesus. That's a pretty good person. If you're going to share a birthday with someone, I suppose that's probably, I don't know, it could be the best or the worst. What's it like to be a Christmas baby?
I think it's the best. People are always saying, oh, you get gypped at Christmas time. First of all, I never got gypped. And second of all, Santa always was the guest at my birthday parties as a kid. So top that. I love my birthday. I wouldn't trade it. And, those lists that say today on your birthday was born ... I get Jesus. So
the first bullet point is Jesus. How do you top that, right? Yeah, I've got like James and a few others, but how do you top Jesus? That's pretty.
But you know what? Also born on Christmas, Humphrey Bogart, Jimmy Buffett, Sissy Spacek, and Anwar Sadat. So I am in very good company.
There you go. I've got Russell Crowe, born same day, same year as me, April 7th, 1964. So we share that. But
that's a lucky birthday, I think. April 7th.
Well, a few other things I've learned in my research is it's not pecans like we say out here in California. It's pecans. So I'm going to try to say pecans as much as I possibly can throughout the day.
That is the perennial debate. I get asked that question all the time, and there really is no correct pronunciation, although 70% of Americans say pecans the way you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I am in the minority saying pecans. It's just the South Georgia in me that just creeps out and can't help itself. So old habits are going to die very hard. I will probably say pecans until the day I die.
Well, good enough for you, good enough for me. If the person who sells pecans and pecan rolls and pralines and so forth says pecans, at least for the next hour, I can as well.
Yeah, I'm starting a movement for pecans because that is just the unappreciated pronunciation. Too many people are saying pecans, and I've always advocated, I guess, for the minority position or the scrappy underdog. So pecan is the underdog in this debate.
There you go. We always root for the underdog, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Always.
So tell me what it was like. What was it like growing up in that kind of household name family business of Stuckey's? I know you didn't take over as the CEO until you were, just within the last year or two, right? But
yeah, until I was 50-ish. I like to say 50-ish.
There you go. Yeah.
I've aged a year since then. Feels like 10 years, but I was the same age as Ray Kroc when he took over McDonald's.
Nice. So yeah, look at he turned that into.
I'm all for.
I think I've heard of that.
Figuring it out.
Yeah.
Figuring it out after 50.
So at its peak, Stuckey's was 370-ish stores, I'm guessing.
That's right. Yeah, in the mid 70s. We really peaked with the American Road Trip. The story of Stuckey's to me is the story of the Great American Road Trip. And our peak was the Great American Road Trip. And then we declined at the same time as the Arab oil embargo was hitting and the Airline Deregulation Act was passed that enabled people to start flying domestically at very affordable rates. So we are so much connected with the very history of this country, which is one of the things I find fascinating about the family business.
Yeah. So has
But you said,
this,
what's it like growing up in the
like,
family?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so
I think of family businesses as kind of like, if I look at, I mean, I live in Southern California, so it's not like I look out my window at snow, but I've looked at snow. I know what it looks like. You know, from the
yeah,
outside, you know, from the inside looking out, it's white, it's cold, it's beautiful. You get out there, and I've never done this, but everybody says if you put a snowflake under the microscope, no two look alike. So I use that a
yep.
lot when I talk about family businesses. From the outside looking in, or the inside in that case looking out, they look very similar, but deep down inside, it's very, very different and unique. So what was it like being the granddaughter of the founder of Stuckey's, and then just growing up in that?
Well, of course, you don't know anything else.
True.
I mean, I've heard
That's the
interviews
twin
with
with
celebrities,
the
and
twin, right? They'll
yeah,
tell you.
I mean, certainly, I mean, my grandfather wasn't like Robert Redford or anything, but you know, I've read interviews of children of famous people, and they're like, well, we never knew any different. So what do we have to compare it to? That was our life experience. So certainly on a lesser scale, but growing up in the Stuckey family, I thought every family stopped at every single Stuckey's when they went on road trips.
Yeah.
So I think that's the great differentiator. In my family, we never had to say, can we stop at Stuckey's? We were pulling over. And the other thing is, we actually got kind of tired of stopping at Stuckey's because we wouldn't just stop for 5 minutes. We would stop for an hour, 2 hours. My dad would talk to the managers, even though the stores fell out of the family for decades.
Right.
So most of my childhood, the stores had been sold, but we obviously would still stop. But my father remained involved with knowing the franchisees. We were founded as a family business. It fell out of the family. We got it back in the family. But not only was it the Stuckey family, we supported families within the company. So it was not uncommon to see whole families working in the business. And it didn't just extend to the direct family lineage of my grandfather, his son, and me, but first cousins twice removed. I mean, I come from a big Southern family, uncles, aunts, cousins. Yeah, last name Stuckey was all over that company.
Sure.
So we really, nepotism is something we champion.
There you go. Well, and I read too, and you touched on it. I read a lot earlier that your grandpa would give shares of stock, for lack of a better term, to a husband and wife who would run a store, and they would almost, in essence, become a franchisee. And then, so
Well,
your
they were
family business
franchisees.
is within family business. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been a franchise operation without corporate owned stores. Maybe just a handful of,
Sure.
maybe corporate owned wouldn't even really be corporate owned, it'd just be family members owned the store. But we've always been franchise operated. Moving forward, I might shift that some, but I'm certainly going to keep with the system that's in place for now and figure out what's the best means for growth moving forward. But franchisees owned the stores and then paid the company a fee. And then my grandfather would quite frequently own some stores, but then he would give shares to employees. So he would have secretaries. Back in the day, you'd say secretaries. I don't mean to be offensive now to executive assistants.
Crazy when you said that, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to be an executive assistant,
Right.
one of my many jobs. So a great deal of respect for that role. But in any event, in the day, it was secretary, and his secretary made like $6,000 a year. But with her franchise shares, she made triple that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's how he rewarded them. And then it makes so much sense. You have buy-in in the company. You care about the success of the company because you are a part owner. So it was not uncommon for people who worked on the candy line, who drove at one point we had a billboard company and a trucking company. So a lot of those employees had ownership. And not only that, my grandfather gave ownership to women and African Americans back in the 1950s and 60s in the South, in the deep South.
Wow.
So very, I don't think he considered himself a progressive in any way. He cared about people and he cared about his employees. So for him, it was just treating people with respect.
Well, that goes back to your comment about how you would stop for 1 or 2 hours at a store. I'm guessing that not only was he meeting with the management team and the franchisees, but he was talking to the customers. And I'm sure,
Absolutely.
walk in that
And
store
watching.
watching their
I mean, really just like sitting and seeing like how people walk through the stores, what products interest them. My grandfather used to go in the parking lot and he would get a clipboard and he would write out what states, what license plates the cars are from. He really monitored that. He wanted to know who was coming to his stores, what were the traffic patterns. So well before there was marketing data and research, he just did what I call shoe leather marketing. He was just very observant and paid attention to what the customers liked. And then he would adapt to their taste.
So how has his legacy and what you just described rolled into Stephanie, the CEO of Stuckey's today?
I study his business methods so much. So I really am trying to learn from that model. The first thing I decided I was going to do when I took on the company in November of last year was visit every single store. And I'm 2/3 of the way through. I would have been done were it not for that darn pandemic that's happening. That sure has slowed me down. But I go to the stores and sometimes I'll call the managers and let them know I'm coming. And sometimes I'll just show up and watch and observe and maybe call them later and say, I was at your store, let me tell you what I saw. Sometimes I liked what I saw, sometimes I didn't. So I've really tried to be very observant, and he paid attention not just to the stores, but to the highway experience.
Yeah.
So he studied the road. I was joking the other day with a friend that my grandfather was a Rhodes Scholar, an ROADS scholar.
Yeah.
And he paid attention. He knew, and my father's this way too. It's crazy. I will tell my father, "Oh, I'm outside of Camilla, Georgia," and he'll say, "Oh, you're at mile marker 52." Like they knew the mile markers. They knew what billboards were at
what. Yeah, every mile or two there was a billboard that said hot coffee coming.
Yeah.
Hot nuts coming. Pecan coming, obviously. Yeah. Yeah.
So he paid attention to the roads. What's the best way to site a store as you're pulling up to an exit? Well, ideally it's going to be on your right. It's going to be the easiest way to access it. So you can pull over the right, and then you're going to want to take that right turn. You don't want to take those left turns.
You want to turn across traffic, sure.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you don't want to cross view for your billboard. You don't want your billboard on the other side of the interstate. You want your billboard on your side of the interstate.
Wow. Yeah, and that was a
really gave thought to that.
Yeah, for 10 or 20 years, it seemed like, I think, from what I read, that was the method of advertising. So how do you use that today? I mean, you mentioned COVID, and you can't do a conversation with anyone anymore without talking about that. I also think I read something that you said that I want to say 97%, I'm probably wrong, but a high percentage of travel in the last 6 months has been in people's personal cars. Maybe I didn't read that. Maybe I read that as I was researching you. Maybe it wasn't a quote, but and I know that to be true as well. I look at the trips that my wife and I have taken in the last 6 months. They're all in our car. You know, we've gone to Bryce Canyon and Zion Canyon, and we've gone up the coast, and we've done things, you know, within 300 or 400 miles, which I think is the average now for most people.
Yeah.
But it's all in our cars. And so do you see that this kind of transition that we're in right now because of COVID could have a long-term benefit on Stuckey's as far as expansion and growth? Are you using this because people are now in their cars more?
I sure hope so. Like I said earlier, I think Stuckey's is very much aligned with the history of this country. And we fell out of family hands. We lost the stores plummeted. The company that bought Stuckey's was a railroad conglomerate out of Chicago. They sold off a lot of the assets of the company. We lost franchisees. We lost over 200 stores. So we sort of plummeted when the road trip plummeted. And then my father bought the company back, reacquired the company, and he was running about 5 other businesses. So Stuckey's was part of his business portfolio. He was extremely successful with the Interstate Dairy Queen Corporation, which is a company he founded. And he had all of the franchise rights to Interstate Dairy Queen stores. So if you pulled over to exit in the US and went to a Dairy Queen, my father was the franchisor. And brilliant that he started that company. So he knew interstate travel very well, but he was busy running that when he acquired Stuckey's. So he started co-branding with Stuckey's and adding Stuckey's next to Dairy Queen's.
Okay.
And did well with that. And then my father retired largely about a decade ago and sold his Dairy Queen company to Warren Buffett. May have heard of him.
Yeah, you're dropping all these names of companies and individuals I may have heard of.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's another businessman I really admire and follow, and I'm a voracious reader and a podcast listener, and I listen and read a lot about Warren Buffett and what his business methods are and what his investment advice is. He's got so much to offer. But in any event, my father and his team pretty much retired about a decade ago and left Stuckey somewhat on an autopilot with a very skeleton crew. And so now I'm trying to come back and revive the company. So I'm reviving Stuckey's and rebranding and rebuilding at the same time that we see the American road trip coming back. And I do think that we're going to see a resurgence of that. I don't think airline travel is going to pick right back up. Right. With all respect to Delta, which is in my hometown. I know so many people who work at that wonderful company. So I'm not dissing airline travel, but
yeah, it's going to be a while.
I am advocating for getting on the road and taking those road trips and rediscovering this great country of ours. That's the most fun I've had in visiting the stores, as I soon realized it's not about just seeing the stores. It's seeing all the fun, amazing roadside oddities and eccentric attractions along the way. So I've slept in a wigwam motel. I've gone to a petting zoo that included llamas and roosters. I'm not quite sure how they expected me to pet a rooster, but I love these roadside places and the world's biggest stuff. You know, I've got a big pencil here.
You do have a big pencil.
I visited the world's biggest rocking chair, the world's largest belt buckle, the world's largest brick, which is in Montgomery, Alabama. I've been to the Hank Williams Senior Museum. So all these, the Evel Knievel Museum was a lot of fun too. So it's just rediscovering America. And you don't have to get in a plane and fly to Paris, even though French is a wonderful language and I love going there.
In college, obviously, yeah.
Right now I'd rather go to Paris, Texas.
Yeah. Well, and
really would.
And you've got a lot of, I've never met your grandpa or your dad, but from what I've read about your grandpa, you obviously have a lot of his blood in you because of the marketing genius and just the out of the box thinking that you do. And that's a big part of the Stuckey's brand. You have big pencil you held up a second ago, and the shot glass we were talking about earlier, and the ways that you brand your organization. How has the branding that he did, I got a family legacy question I want to get back to in a second as well. I heard you quoted, and I want to go to that in a minute, but how has the branding that he did and that your dad carried on, as you now look going forward as 2020, as we're recording this September 16th, looking forward 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, what do you envision for how you will be branding? And I don't mean branding like little trinkets and so forth, although that is part of it. What visions do you have for branding the company going forward?
Well, I really want to go back to our roots and tap into what made our company special, because when I think about what's a differentiator for Stuckey's along the interstate highway, we were started before there was an interstate highway. We were founded in 1937 as a produce stand that sold
highway, really, with
pecans, on the Hawkinsville Highway. And my grandfather called them Yankees, so no disrespect, but Yankee tourists coming to Florida would pull over and buy pecans and candies. He started making the candies and those would sell. And then he started selling tchotchkes. So we were there before the interstate highway system. So now when we started and he moved right on over to the interstate, which I so admire. There were so many of these early businesses that you would see on these back roads of this country that when the interstate highway came along, they just folded. No, not my grandfather. He just picked right up, started putting his stores on the interstate highway, and he built them better. He's like, okay, I want people to be able to see my stores on the interstate, because now they have to pull over. Before, the stores are just right there on the road. You didn't have to pull over.
Yeah.
So what did he do? He got bright turquoise roofs. He got these sloped roofs that looked very distinctive. That was not just an architectural design. That was a marketing tool. Yeah. He's like, how can I get people to pull over? They're going to have to pull over on the left side. I'm going to get on the top of a roof. A hill. He would always try to have a store situated on a slope. So he he was there on the interstate highway system before anyone else. But since then, all right, so fast forward, we've had a decline. And during the time that we were in decline, all these other locations are now up. We've got Pilot, we've got Love's, we've got TA, we've got Stuckey's.
Yep.
It's a competitive landscape. So I've got to figure out, you know, moving forward, how do I tap into what's nostalgic and great with a heritage brand? And your listeners out there who are part of family legacies and have companies that have been around 50 plus years like Stuckey's, I know you all grapple with these same issues. How do you take a heritage brand, be very respectful and tap into what makes you so special, but move forward? But one of the things that makes us so special is that people have Stuckey stories and they have Stuckey's memories. Yeah. And no, yeah, not knocking the competition, although I am a bit competitive, but I don't think people have those warm, fuzzy stories about some of the competitors that we have on the interstate exits of this country. Yeah. You know, but people every single day reach out to me, you know, like my parents stopped at Stuckey's on their honeymoon, or my wife and I have been married for 50 years. And every year on our anniversary, I give her a log roll because I gave her a pecan log roll on our first date. I literally got a letter that said that and it brought tears to my eyes. So, you know, we have things that make us different. So I want to tap into that. I think retro is getting to be cool again. So I just got to shamelessly bring out a rubber alligator. You know, we sold a lot of these over the years. So we're known for this stuff. Yeah. And I'm getting back to our roots. This is our latest display box, shameless product plug. Please. But this looks like our old billboards. Yeah, looks like so I'm paying attention to what's getting traction on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram and YouTube, working on getting more on YouTube. But we get such a high response rate from our billboards. So I'm tapping into that. But it's also got a bit of a modern edge to it. So it's just giving a tip of the hat to our roots, but also saying, well, we're still here and you can find us on the internet and you can shop on the cyber highway, and we're on Yelp, we're on Google reviews, we're cleaning up those sites. And so we're doing things to modernize. We're definitely looking at drive-through windows moving forward. So we're looking at all the modern things that consumers are going to expect now. Sure. And with the health regulations and everything else too, there's that consideration that you probably didn't think about 6 months ago. You talked a minute ago about one thing, bringing out the baseball cap. I like my trucker's cap on. Yeah, I like the trucker cap, the Stuckey's trucker cap. I know it right away when we get off this podcast. I'm getting online and I got a T-shirt and a big pencil and a trucker's cap. And it's Trucker Appreciation Week. So shout out to our long haulers who keep America moving. Love it. So you talked about not only how do you keep the company moving forward while protecting the vision of the founder. It's kind of a double-edged sword. You have to make sure that you are you're growing with the times and that you're advancing with technology and everything else, but you don't want to step away from the vision of Grandpa in your particular case. But you also want to make sure that you are adapting. And so there's that fine line that's tough. We have to adapt, but we don't want to bury the memory of Grandpa and just say, well, that's the way we used to do it. I do think that we're coming back to, as you mentioned, that nostalgia really is a driver in marketing from what I see. Well, you know what us family-owned brands have that these others don't? We've got personality. Mm-hmm. We've got a human connection. We're not a big corporation. Right. And we've got a legacy that dates back to whoever the founder is in your particular family business. Yeah. And a lot of businesses don't have that. And a lot of the most successful businesses had it and lost it. Right. It fell out of the original family hands. And I like the chain, but I'm going to mention one that we all know, Wendy's. Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm sure you remember the Dave Thomas ads. Yeah, absolutely. I was of the era where the founder of Wendy's, and it was named after his daughter. Mm-hmm. And he did these great ads and you just felt this connection with him. And he wasn't smooth or polished, although he was definitely very articulate and charismatic. He was relatable. But he was just real. He was relatable. Yeah. And you just got the sense of, I'm buying a burger from Dave Thomas. I'm not just buying a burger. Like my next door neighbor, he had that feel. It's like,
you know, the kids I'm playing with, that's their grandpa almost, kind of that feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's out of the family hands now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's no longer a good brand, but it's out of the family hands. I personally, I don't feel that same connection anymore.
Yeah.
I like knowing that there's actually a Stuckey at Stuckey's. You know, it's not
exactly.
just
pretty cool. Huh? Imagine that.
It's not just a name.
Right.
You know, McDonald's. Well, shoot, it's been out of McDonald's. And like I said, I love Ray Kroc, and really, I've studied his model. I study a lot of these founders and how they built a brand, and have a lot of incredible respect and admiration for what they did. But boy, the McDonald's brothers, they sold forever ago. So there's just something I think really special about that. And not just that personal connection, but the connection and having a sense of place and individuality and something that's real. And you often lose that with large corporations. Now there's things that you gain with a large corporation. You're going to have consistency. You're going to know every single store you stop at is pretty much going to be exactly the same, because it's run by this
see those arches anywhere around America, you know what you're getting.
It's going to look the same. You're going to stop at McDonald's in Cincinnati, it's going to be like a McDonald's in Cairo, Georgia, right? But Stuckey's, what I'm really pushing for is, you stop at a Stuckey's in Unadilla, Georgia, you're going to know you're in Georgia. You're going to get some Georgia souvenirs, and you're going to have some local honey and some local peaches and pecans.
I love it.
And if you stop at the Stuckey's in Yeehaw Junction, you might see some fresh citrus fruits out front. And you're definitely going to see some rubber alligators if you're at the Florida store. So I like that. I like that sense of this unique experience that you're not going to get. And so it makes you want to pull over. Not every Stuckey's is going to be the same.
Right.
You're going to have that same, hopefully, consistency and high quality that I am working on. I will say, those of you pull over to Stuckey's, right now we are a fixer-upper. We need some TLC, and I am working on it. I read every Yelp review. I read every Google review. I read every customer comment on our website. So I'm paying attention. And if people don't have a great experience, I want to hear about it. And we are cleaning up, fixing up, rebranding one store at a time. But I'm on the case.
And that's the way to do it.
Not sleeping. I'm on the case.
Yeah, that's right. You're not sleeping a lot.
Drinking lots of coffee.
You've got a lot of coffee, and you have your pecan praline with your coffee. I saw too. So I'm gonna have to add that to my.
Yeah, all right. These days is one of my favorites. It's the turtles.
Yeah, I love
the milk chocolate turtles. Yeah. So good. It's caramel with pecans, and we have milk and white chocolate, and it's just out of the world. That's maybe my favorite. It's my favorite right now. So when I've been eating this
pecan again, I just said it for the last time.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm now
as long as you buy it, I don't care what you say. You can say
whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can say pecan, that's another way of saying it. Say it however you want, just buy it.
So obviously family legacy is important to you. You're quoted as saying, it's my name on those billboards, it's my family legacy. We've talked about, I was going to ask the question, talk about family legacy, but I think for 25 minutes we've been doing that. But as you think about that, what's the sense you feel? I know when I drive by something, like there's a winery near us that I'm not related to that has the last name Hart. And just because it has my last name, I have this sense of pride. I've got these family businesses that I work with that are clients of mine. And when I drive by their store or their hotel or whatever, and I see the name, this sense of pride just washes over me because I know the family. I can pick up the phone or fire a text off to the CEO of the company because he or she's my friend. So when you see that Stuckey's road sign on the side of the highway, or that hat that you're wearing right now, or the shirt you're wearing, or just what's that feeling like for you?
Usually it's a sense of pride, but every now and then it's a sense of, oh my gosh, I gotta light fire under my butt and get this looking better. Sometimes I see those stores and they need some love. So it's both. It's inspiration, motivation to do better, but there's also a sense of pride for what my grandfather and my father did, and also my grandmother. We would not have a pecan log roll were it not for Ethel Stuckey. I'm actually named after her. My full name is Ethel Stephanie Stuckey.
Saw that.
And I've just always gone by Stephanie, but I'm very proud of my grandmother too. I knew her a lot better. I was in my 30s when she passed. I was 12 when my grandfather died. I knew my grandmother very well.
Yeah. And Stephanie Stuckey just has a great just rolls too. I like great name.
This is kind of funny. You said, other businesses with your same last name.
Yeah.
Our number one customer base are people with the last name Stuckey. We get so many people with the last name Stuckey ordering our products online. And I am obsessive about gathering data to try to understand, how to better market, how to, who is our consumer, what can we do to innovate. And so I'm always looking at data, and I religiously get up and I'll read through who's bought our product online, who's signed up for our website, and last name Stuckey over and over and over.
Database.
Yeah, it was like 1,500. Oh, my cat just came in. I had like 1,500 people with the last name Stuckey by June of this year who placed orders.
Wow.
So keep on. Hey, all you Stuckeys out there.
There you go.
My relatives.
Yep.
Yeah, keep buying our merch. Let's keep repping the family name.
Yeah, no, I have merchandise with heart on it for the winery and other things as well. What do you think will be the toughest obstacle ahead as you, I'm not going to say rebrand, because I don't think you're rebranding as much as you're rebuilding the brand. What do you see?
We're rebranding too, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the logo is going to look the same and the colors and everything. I'm guessing you're not going to like radically change what people recognize, but
I am in that. I mean, I love what my father did, but this is 80s stuff, which is actually looking a little dated. So this was the 80s logo that I got when I took over the company. Sorry. Sometimes I feel like I'm running the country with this, all the work. This is a retro logo. By the way, I'm trying to bring this mug back. It's going to cost me about $20,000, and I'm going to do a Kickstarter campaign. So to be continued.
Okay.
But we're moving back to this one. So it is a rebranding.
Okay. So as you do this, you've got an undergrad degree in French, you have a law degree. You're obviously a marketer. I can see it in you, but that's probably what you learned from your DNA more than what you learned in school. What excites you about this? I mean, you look obviously very enthused about it. There's no question.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning to that chocolate pecan praline with your cup of coffee and get excited about your day. What is it about that day or the days ahead that excites you the most?
Well, I want to make sure I answered your other question about the challenge. What's the biggest challenge with building the company and moving forward? I would say building a team, because we're a very scrappy team. When I took on the company, our corporate office, including me, was 3, our management team. CFO, a vice president, and then me. And we just took on a president who's awesome, RJ Lamar, and he and I are jointly owning and running the company.
Nice.
And he has a healthy snack pecan line called Front Porch Pecans. So it really makes sense on a lot of levels. And his father and my father and grandfather all knew each other. They've managed our family pecan orchard since the 1970s. So really close family ties. He's a family business. So very excited about that. But building a team, getting the right people to help run your organization. And more than anything, to me, what I think is going to be the biggest challenge, but also the best opportunity, frontline workers. And by frontline workers, I mean people who work in our stores. They are the face of our company. They are who the customer interacts with. And I think too often people in this space, businesses in sort of the C-store space or roadside retail space, it's hard to get really good quality employees in some of these jobs. They're not super high paying.
Sure.
And there may not be the most interesting, fun job depending on how it's structured, but it can be challenging. So getting really good quality, motivated employees, and I am studying Chick-fil-A, I think, does a very good job. They don't pay their cashiers or their personnel, their staff, any more than any other fast food chain. But why is it that their customer service is exemplary? What is about it? It's corporate culture.
Yeah, it's culture, and it's
the
hiring.
values.
It's hiring the right type of individual. You can teach skills.
Yeah,
You can train people how to
absolutely.
but you can't train them on personality and smiling. And
No.
we have a brand out here on the West Coast you know of, but you don't have them in Georgia, In-N-Out Burger. They're,
Oh my gosh, I love In-N-Out.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is Lindsay Snyder, family business right here locally near us. Know the family well, and she'll say the same. They do pay a little bit more, but she will say it's not about that. It's about the type of.
It's not the money. Yeah, and it's the corporate culture, and Chick-fil-A is a family-owned business, right? The Cathy family.
Right, exactly.
Very successfully transitioned to the second generation with from Truett to Dan Cathy.
Right.
Fun fact, my grandfather knew Truett Cathy, and he also knew Joe Rogers with the Waffle House chain.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, probably hit a few Waffle House road trips. That's one of my favorite chains, yeah.
Yeah, Waffle House was founded right down the street from me. Literally, it's like 2 miles from my house. I eat at Waffle House. Well, they call it number 1000, but it's considered like the first store. That is my Waffle House. It is in my neighborhood. I go to that Waffle House all the time.
Do they still let you sit with strangers right now during COVID, or probably not as much? Because that was one of the things about Waffle House is you sit down next to somebody you don't know, and that's one of the nice little.
Yeah, no, there's social distancing. They're being safe, but that's a brand I absolutely love. But so I think the biggest challenge, and I'm trying to learn from those who do it well, QT is another one. If you go to QT, you'll see on the badges, it'll often, it'll say like, been here 4 years, been here 6 years at a QT.
Yeah.
And you walk in and they're like, hello, they greet you. They're so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like processing, they're getting your orders. What do you want? You want a lottery ticket?
Yeah. And you obviously get that the key is definitely we recruit and we hire personality and culture. And yeah, the corporate culture is important, but you got to find people that match that culture, because to train people and say, well, you're now part, you're not genuinely a happy person and everybody here smiles and is, like cheering when we get a tip and stuff. That's just not the, that's the
saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's your favorite thing about your current role? You've been an attorney, you've been a senator, a state senator, you spent a lot of time, working on the environment. Obviously, that's a big passion and profession of yours in the past. But now in this newly minted CEO role of Stuckey's, what's your favorite thing about every day in the job?
Yeah. Oh, quick correction, fact check. I was a state rep, not a senator, and I love being in the House instead of the Senate. The House had 180 members, Senate is 56, and the House was just a raucous, rowdy bunch. It's like the Wild West sometimes.
Nice.
You have to get.
That's podcast number 2. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, no, I love the Georgia legislature. I had so much fun, and I left the best way possible. I didn't run for re-election. So you always want to end on a high note before the voters kick you out.
Yeah, exactly. Be the one deciding to leave, not being the one told.
I'm a firm believer politics should not be your career, it should not be your profession. It should be a calling that you do like as a public service. And I had so much fun, and I learned a lot of skills that I apply today, especially about consensus building and respecting other people's viewpoints, even if they disagree with you. Yeah. Really learned a lot with that, but did not want to make it my profession. I felt really strongly about that, and so made a career move. And
that's a lesson we could all learn right now, given the
politics is very divisive these days. It was more fun when I was in it. I got elected in 1998, and it was a lot more consensus based. Sam Nunn is a real hero of mine, and just how he always reached across party lines, and just everyone seems to have respected him. But I digress. What I find, like, what's my favorite thing about my job? I think just hopefully most of your listeners can relate to this. In many ways, I feel like I'm running an 80-year-old startup, and it's just never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Some days it really is. Most days I have a whack-a-mole going on with whatever the crisis du jour is. There's my French major going.
There you go. That's right. I knew you.
Crisis du jour.
Yeah.
So things crop up, and even though you got a strategy in place, you've got every day I wake up, I've got my little to-do list. I use Microsoft To Do, and I've got my little list, and I review, like, Mark, here's my day. And I'm going to be so orderly and structured, and then I get a call. so-and-so had a forklift. This was actually crisis last week. Forklift they hit reverse instead of forward, and it ran over one of the pickers at the warehouse's foot. And so he was out for a week, and it's in Eastman, Georgia, and it's kind of hard finding some of the last minute. And we had a big order of balsa blankets come in, and so we had to unload those balsa blankets. Like, how are we going to do it?
You got to figure out how to do it.
You just got to, and I guess the other thing is, yes, I've got the title CEO, but I will stock shelves.
Sure.
I will send out the e-blast. I will do the social media post. I will
That's why you're wearing
do whatever. I'll place the purchase order. I'll process the invoice. I'll answer the customer complaint. I actually do think the CEO should be answering the customer complaints.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about that one. I do answer those customer complaints personally.
Borrowing from another Atlanta, Georgia-based company, I used to believe, I'm 56. I used to believe that social media, I was one of the last ones on the train for promoting companies through social media, because I always used to think it was just interns promoting their company to other interns.
Yeah.
So I heard that the CEO of Coca-Cola is the guy who logs onto their Facebook account. Now, this was in 2016, I heard this, but still 4 years later, there's probably some truth to the fact that the CEOs of the world are and you are looking at what your Yelp reviews and your social media posts and so forth.
Oh yeah.
It's a great way to get the attention of the leaders of an organization. So I've shifted in my paradigm about that too, because of conversations I've had with a lot of folks over the years that, hey, if the CEO of Coca-Cola is the one looking at the Facebook account every day, then probably a lot of other people out there doing it too, and influential.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good.
I actually heard that Jeff Bezos answers his emails and reads a lot of his customer emails. So Jeff Bezos, I emailed you. I've not gotten my response
There you go. All
yet.
right, we'll make sure, Jeff, you got that when
putting it out there
from the heart. Yeah, and Mark Cuban as well. Mark Cuban actually was one of the first CEOs. Right when Shark Tank came out, that I'd heard say, "Hey, here's my email address. markcuban@yahoo.com or whatever it was." And probably people are going to email that now. Maybe it is, but
right.
I emailed him.
I love that show, by the way.
I do too. Well, I can see you on Undercover Boss too. I see that in your future.
Oh, well, I'm living it.
Yeah, you're out there on the road, so I can definitely.
I'm out there. Yeah, The Profit and Shark Tank. I think I've seen every episode. I know I've seen every episode of The Profit, and I'm working through Shark Tank.
Yeah.
But those are such great shows to show how you present yourself, being able to field some of these really tough questions. Oh, here's the most challenging part of my job is learning finances.
Yeah,
that was my background. Yeah, I had a good liberal arts background, and then I went to law school, and I was a litigator and politician, and worked for City of Atlanta as head of sustainability. So I'm not, I'm familiar with budgets.
Yeah.
I ran a nonprofit law firm. So, I'm comfortable with budgets and numbers. I'm comfortable with fundraising. I'm not shy at all about asking for money for a cause I believe in or a company I believe in. But really understanding how to read a balance statement, how to read an income statement, how to understand cash flow, how to understand working capital. It's been a huge learning curve. And a good friend of mine told me right when I started, he was asking me some pretty pointed questions about finances. I didn't have all the answers. I said, "Oh, I'm not good with numbers." He said, "I want that to be the last time you say that to anyone. And he said, "I'm your friend, and you could say it to me once." He said,
Right.
"No excuse. You got to know this." It's like, do you do what it takes? So I've been reading Finances 101. I've been watching webinars. Every time there's a finance term I don't understand, I look it up, I study it. In fact, right before the show, I was looking over our P&L statements for the last 5 years. I'm looking at the trends. I look at the merchandising reports. What product lines are selling the best? What categories are doing the best? What's our price point? What's our margin? You don't understand that, you have no business running a company. No matter, this is the fun stuff, wearing the hat and the drinking the mug, but
Sure.
you don't get to do the fun stuff
Without
if you don't
doing
hunker
parts.
down and look at those numbers.
Yeah, and
Because there will be no money.
Yeah, you don't understand the numbers of your business, you don't understand your business. And so,
Yeah, and I will admit I am learning that every day. I still have gaps. It's something I I struggle with, but I'm doing it. You got to step up to the plate.
Well, and a lot of it is attitude, and you've got that proper attitude for sure. What do you tell somebody now? I going back to my experience with family-owned companies, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of similarities, but a lot more uniqueness to it. But what do you tell that individual that's taking kind of the same path you are? Maybe they grew up with the family business name, but they chose a different path. But now they're kind of thinking, you know, like you said, hey, that's my name on the billboard. That's my legacy. Maybe it's not their billboard, but maybe they're having that thought of, you know, maybe the family business is actually for me, and I'm 50-ish, like you, when you took over. Any advice or maybe experiences that you would do differently that might have led you here sooner, or just any words of wisdom, I guess, is what I'm asking for someone who took a different path for the first 20 years of your career?
I wouldn't have done this a day sooner.
Okay.
Really. Even though I've had a variety of life's experiences, and maybe it would have been helpful to have worked in franchising before I came onto this role. But I heard an interview with Warren Buffett where they asked him about companies that he invests in and what does he look for. And he said a couple things that really resonated with me. One is he talked about companies that, not companies that have been mismanaged, but that companies that have largely been not managed are companies that he looks for because there's potential there. Like there's Stuckey's, and I love the team that was keeping things going for the past decade, but Stuckey's hasn't had a CEO in a decade. And we're still here. We're still plugging away on the interstate highway system. We're still selling our product. So there's a there there, right?
Yeah.
There's something about this company
there's some low
that's just like
you can pick right away, and then there's some other things that you can see. Like you, I sense I'm a scoreboard person. I really like to see the results of my day. I look at how many viewers and listeners we have on the podcast, probably more times a day than I should. I look at, you know, the sales and the numbers coming in for our business and for my role, and it's awesome to be able to look and see what your impact has done.
Yeah. Looking at the numbers, data drives everything. Really has to. You talk about how you get into the modern era with the heritage brand. You got to embrace data, just like you got to embrace numbers. Like that may be hard for some of us, especially the data. If you're a certain era where you didn't grow up with a personal computer or an iPhone or all the other amenities we're used to now, but you really have to adapt to that if you're going to grow the company. The other bit of advice, I guess, for post 50 that I gleaned from a Warren Buffett interview was, he said he looked to invest in companies where there was leadership, and he looked at management teams where there's emotional maturity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that comes from life's experiences. I won't necessarily say age, because you can be very emotionally mature at a younger age, but it is really developed through life's experiences. So having robust experiences in life. I was a French major. How often do I parlez-vous every day? Not very often.
Once
but
on the podcast,
do I benefit every single day from having a wonderful liberal arts education? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I benefit from having been a trial lawyer? Yeah, I can think quick on my feet. Maybe I'm not objecting, and maybe I'm not citing rules of evidence, but I know how to think quick on my feet. I know how to conduct an interview. I know how to cross-examine people. That actually does come in handy. You have to learn to judge characters. If you're picking a jury and your client is facing a life sentence, you better learn real quick how to judge people. I took all sorts of courses on how to judge people, how to do effective voir dire. There's my other French term. But how to do your jury selection. You got to, it's all about human behavior and studying people. Those skills come into so much use. Trying to understand your customer at Stuckey's.
Well,
I spent my life observing people. It helped in politics. Judge people by their body language.
And that emotional maturity you talk about, I think of another synonym for that, and that's humility or teachability. People who are emotionally mature and have that high EQ typically are very teachable. They understand that, like you understand that financials weren't that's not your forte. Look at me throwing some French back at you. But
There we go.
I didn't major in French, sorry, but my wife is from a French Canadian side of family, so I pick up on some things from here, here and there. You're writing a book, you mentioned on an email.
Yeah.
To me. Tell me about the book.
Well, I guess I'll put book in air quotes because it really is very visual. It's going to be a lot of archival images of the history of Stuckey's with some rich text that forms a narrative. And I've got the great fortune of building on a book that was already written and published a couple of years ago by a man named Tim Hollis and his Arcadia Publishing. And I connected with him after I took on the company. And I said, I love your book, but frankly, there's some gaps. And I would love to help you do a new edition with new archival images that I had gotten when I took on the company. My mom said, oh, by the way, we've got 6 boxes of your grandfather's stuff in storage. Do you want them?
It's gold.
And I was like, yes, I do. So I proceeded to go through these boxes, beautiful photos. I've had them digitized and preserved. And then I've read through every article I could find. And many of them were in these boxes that you can't find them online. And I took copious notes. You've gotten some of those notes. I've formed an outline, and my deadline is actually this week.
Ooh,
so
I'm gonna have to go here. Yeah.
I'm gonna be busy this weekend. I'm writing it this weekend. So Tim, if you're listening, I'm working on the book. Sorry.
Well, I'm a purchaser of that book when it's ready to go because I love that. I love looking at. First of all, it's picture books, so I'm real good at picture books. But
it'll be co-authored. So Tim Hollis and myself will be co-authoring that book.
The books behind me on my shelf, there's leadership books and so forth. But what you won't see because they're over on my desk is the picture books and the stories of these family businesses, because that's what really fascinates me.
I love stories of how businesses were founded. The founder stories, just amazing to me. How hard people worked and just the little quirks of how things came to be the way they are. Fascinating to me. Like Ben and Jerry's has big chunks of their fruit and chocolate because one of the founders had some sort of condition where it was hard for him to smell and taste unless things were big chunks.
Yeah.
That's how that came to be. And that's what made Ben and Jerry's great. And at the time, they were like, well, this is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But it made them special.
You say there's a there, you said earlier, and I've heard you say that before.
Yeah.
So a why? Why do we do things? Well, there's a reason why for everything. I heard a pastor say,
I love those stories.
Yeah, I heard a pastor once say, and this really stuck with me, and I'm going to ask you the follow-up question as based on what he said. People wonder sometimes when they go into a church or they go into a community or they're at that point in their career where they want to give back. Where do I give? Where do I serve? What do I do? And the question that he posed was, and I'll ask you, and I've got a few more questions to go after this one, but right now I'm going to ask you what breaks your heart, because that typically is where we put our time, our talent, our treasure, and so forth. Is there something out there that breaks your heart that you'd like to shed some light on right now, or that drives you when you're not focused on Stuckey's? Or maybe it is part of what you do with Stuckey's.
I think I've got a lot of empathy for people who feel like they've been passed over.
Okay.
And people just don't pay attention to them. And I think in some ways I feel that because I was number 4 of 5 kids. I was number 5 of 7 grandchildren. I was never the one who was supposed to be picked for this role.
Wow.
I'm the middle child. I'm stuck somewhere in the middle with several kids. And, we're not necessarily always the ones that get picked. And I talked to this woman today. She saw one of my LinkedIn posts and she just called me, and my cell number is all over the place. I love that about Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
And this harkens back to, your life experiences build where you are today, right? When I was in politics, I put my cell number and my personal email and everything. Well, at the time it was home number, right? Before cell.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I remember my mom going, oh, honey, you can't do that. Who's going to call you? And I said, people are respectful, and whoever calls me is going to really need me. And I'm putting it out there, and it says I'm accessible, and it was fine. I never got overwhelmed. And every now and then you get someone who's annoying, whatever, but
Sure.
It's
comes with the
it's
territory.
not a big deal.
Yeah. If you want
Learning to deal with difficult people and learning to deal with annoying people is a really important life skill.
Yeah, we all need to do that,
You
because
should list your number.
yeah, and look around. Oftentimes, if you don't know any annoying people, it's because you're the annoying person. So I don't mean you, but I mean we all can be that person as well, for sure. I know there's somebody
and deal with them with grace and respect and politeness, because that's what my Southern grandmothers taught me to do. But in any event, so what makes me sad, or it's people who feel left out. So this woman reached out to me. We had the best conversation, and she said, I love what you're doing, and I'm in my mid 50s and I'm looking for a bit of a career change, and maybe there's some opportunities for us to work together. We just had the best conversation, and I said, I know what that feels like. I know how it is to be not always the first one in mind when they're thinking about who they're going to be as part of their team. And give those people a shot.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be the spunky, scrappy fighters.
Yeah. For those who have had things just given to them, opportunity or even materialistic things, they don't tend to appreciate it as much. For those of you who've had to really work for it and been overlooked, I think that there's a tenacity and there's a strength that you bring that sometimes we can overlook. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And
I don't want anyone to think like, oh, she was just handed that job. Right. No, I was not. I had to buy Stuckies. I bought Stuckies from my dad's former partners. I put my life savings into it. It's money I saved up. It was my money. And not that I don't love my father and he hasn't been a support to me, but it was not handed to me.
Right.
And I was
not a silver spoon.
I was not the heir apparent. I'm the scrappy one going, what about me?
So how can people reach you? You alluded to that earlier. I'm not asking you necessarily to put your cell phone number out there, but I mean, what's the
put my email, sstuckey@stuckeys.com, or social media @StuckeyStop or LinkedIn.
Okay. What's the best place to go to purchase your products or to get some of that swag and those things that you showed us here on video?
So you can go online on our website. I'm not
going to drive through your store anytime in the near future, because there's like an older one out here off of Route 66 somewhere in Arizona. But
no more in Arizona.
No more there? Okay. So
we used to be in Arizona.
Okay. Is there expansion plans to come back out west eventually?
I would love that. We need a distribution center in the Midwest to really make it work, because the freight cost, I was just looking at our freight cost today.
With all that.
Being profitable is not just about generating revenue, it's controlling costs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's finances 101, but you really have to hunker down. And boy, those distribution, that freight cost, trucking, that behind salaries is our #1 expenditure. So we gotta get a distribution center out in the Midwest to really make that worthwhile.
Well, but to find Stuckies, we talked about In-N-Out Burger. Lindsay Snyder, one of the things she's told me personally, and I've heard her say to a lot of people in a lot of different settings, is distribution. I don't have In-N-Out in Mississippi or Atlanta or New York or Kansas City, because we have to be able to get fresh product, fresh produce to the stores within one day. So look at your cat.
My cat.
What's your cat?
Yeah, and refrigerated trucking.
Oh, yeah.
Really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
what's the cat's name?
Stuckey's got Smokey.
Smokey.
So
nice.
www.stuckeys.com.
Okay.
There's store locator guide.
Yep.
There is a shop, online shop. We're on Amazon, but select products. Again, distribution. Amazon gets pretty expensive. Yep. Amazon isn't even. Jeff Bezos, reach out to me. You need to be a little friendlier to some of us small outfits. They give us it's like so many things. They give you an outlet, they give you a platform, they elevate your brand, but there are fees and there are costs associated with being on Amazon. So we're on Amazon, mostly just our log rolls and our snack pecans right now, because it's hard to make a profit with some of the other merchandise. But our website, and then we have some 200 retail stores that sell our product as well.
Sure. Well, what I'll do in my show notes here when I'm done today and we post this out and blast it out, we'll put a link to stuckies.com and encourage people to go on and look around and
Yeah.
shop and so forth. So yeah, Stephanie, thank you for being on
Thank you.
today. So again, the name of the show is From the Heart. My name is Ed Hart. We're presented by Orange Kiwi, great family business consulting firm, again, out here. But the reason that the From the Heart is sort of a dual meaning, obviously my last name, but ultimately I have a lot of information about my guests of what they do and the Wikipedias and the Googles and the bios. And I love that because it helps me get to know the person a little bit about your background. But ultimately, the why you do what you do is what really drives me, and I think a lot of our listeners. So I'm going to end the interview right now by just simply asking one question. Stephanie Stuckey, what's in your heart?
Ooh, gratitude. I start every day with thinking of 3 things that I'm grateful for. And if you operate out of a abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity one, your life is full.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't seem like it's full. So that's why you got to do that gratitude every morning. That sort of, I have this, I don't know if it really is meditation. I'm pretty high energy, so I have a hard time sometimes with that whole sitting still. But when you do, it does really just, you center your thinking and you just really contemplate, what am I grateful for? And it could be something as simple as, I am grateful for this delicious hot cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful that I knew my grandfather.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I have this amazing opportunity to bring my family's brand back. And my daughter, who's 14, listens to Hamilton all the time. And you know, the famous song, you know, I'm not gonna blow my shot, you know, like that's what I feel like. I've got my shot.
Very
So
cool.
I'm not gonna blow it, and I'm grateful that I've got it.
Well, I can speak on behalf of everyone who's going to watch and listen to this, that we feel gratitude for you taking the time today to be with us. We know you have a lot going on. I'm a fan of the brand. I'm a fan of you. I'm excited to watch this journey. I'm excited to promote the journey any way I can. And like I said, we work with a lot of family businesses all over the world. And if there's anything we can do for you, brands that you admire or companies or people you'd like to talk to, obviously, you know, you've got a pretty nice Rolodex of people you can talk to, but we'd love to help in any way we can. So Stephanie, thank you very much for your time today. And again, visit stuckies.com. You're going to be happy you did. And when those pecans and pralines arrive at your doorstep, you can thank us for reintroducing you hopefully to those. So Stephanie, thanks again.